I can't really believe that it's been 5 years since George Floyd was killed. Honestly, it feels like a very long time ago, and it feels like just yesterday at the same time. And I have to be honest, once I realized that we had reached that moment, it was hard. A moment when my faith is tested, where I stop and reflect on what is happening and, to be honest with you, all of the things I thought I was doing so that we wouldn't be in this moment again. And even though it's been 5 years, I remember the pain I felt. I remember waking up this morning and asking myself, should I watch the video? Like, I'm hearing this, like, does my spirit need to see this? I'm not one of those people that needs to be awakened to Black suffering and Black pain. I've seen it, I've lived it. I don't know if I even want to watch it. I remember that being such a big question for me the day after. And then I remember people taking the streets and clients, I was doing consulting at the time, clients sort of asking us, what do we need to do differently? I remember a sense of mission that I felt. I remember this one day when all my family, we were together, it was the pandemic. We were all of the members of my bubble, my mom, my dad, my husband, my cousin. We were all on these different Zoom calls about how we were called to respond to this moment. And I remember that I wanted to be sure that we made a tangible difference for all the Black women and men who live with the constant reality that the same thing could happen to them. And so I organized around lots of racial justice pieces, but I specifically organized around police reform. And I was able to connect with other people across Massachusetts. I particularly remember connecting with folks in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is one of the cities and towns across this country that have been under a consent decree with the Department of Justice. And we organized in Massachusetts. And don't get me wrong, we definitely did not get everything that we wanted, but we were able to make some concrete changes. We were able to have some real conversations about surveillance and how much surveillance police should be able to do. We were able to focus on what kind of training police should get and what kind of accountability. The idea that officers who have multiple charges against them should have those charges follow them. They shouldn't be able to just leave one city and then go to another one and continue to replicate the same behavior without being held accountable. So I remember not just the pain that I felt, but the sense that people were mobilizing, the sense that we could actually get some real change, and the fact that we did make a difference. I think that's why it hurts so much that we are back again in another Trump administration. That we as Americans, not me per se, but Americans chose to elect someone who is openly trying to erase Black history. That's why it hurts that I found out last week that the Department of Justice is gonna drop the consent decrees against the very police departments we organized to hold more accountable. It hurts. I can't deny that this is a hard day to take stock of where we are. And I've been trying to reflect on what to say. How do I say something that's not just negative? How do I recognize where we've been? How do I think about what we need to do? And the takeaway that I've had, which is probably not new for me, but just something that I'm realizing on a very deep level, is that George Floyd was not just killed because of bad police policies. They certainly contributed. We should absolutely change them. But George Floyd was killed because Black life was not and is not valued equally in this country. And of course I know that. I'm Black. I've studied history. I've been in moments where I feared for my life. I've watched things unfold for my father, for my brothers, for my cousins. I know that Black life has never been valued equally in this country. And I have come to the conclusion that Black life will never be valued until there is a fundamental shift in our country and our world. The trend in this country has been white supremacy since the beginning. And many people have come here and been not considered white. The Irish weren't considered white. Italians weren't considered white. But with time, the agreement was that if you buy into white supremacy, then you can be part of whiteness. But that option has never been there for Black people, because Blackness was always the opposite of whiteness. And one of the things that's hurt my heart, particularly as I've seen more Black people who voted for Trump, and even some of the movements that I have been a part of, is this notion that there might be some relief for Black people, for Latino people, for Arab people, without necessarily eliminating white supremacy. I've heard Black folks say to me, all we need to do is just get reparations, or let's just try to get our own place in this country. That's the solution for us. And I believe that as long as white supremacy continues to exist, Black life will never be valued. And so I believe, as a Black person, my only option is to fight to eliminate white supremacy until there is no one on top. I believe that's not just the only hope for Black people, but it's the only solution that I want to pursue. Because the truth is, I wouldn't see it as a win if Black people can be sure that our lives will be honored, but then Latino people are on the bottom, or Asian people are on the bottom, or there's any way of deciding that anybody gets to have their life not valued. So my hope on this anniversary is first and foremost that Black people, that we will choose to end white supremacy, not to buy into it, not to try to work around with it, not to try to find some special place where we'll be valued, but to end white supremacy. And my hope is that white people, Asian people, Latina people, all groups of people will make a conscious choice that it's time to end white supremacy once and for all. I know that people have said this whole idea that all lives matter. But part of the retort has been all lives matter when Black lives matter. And that is absolutely true. But all lives won't matter until white supremacy ends. And so I can't be for any version of America, any version of our world, where we go back to some time where white supremacy was considered just what it is to be American. And I know the notion that we're going to end white supremacy sounds like the same as the sky turning orange or the ocean drying up. White supremacy is so a part of our country's history that it seems almost unrealistic to make this request, to believe that this is possible. I get it. It's a tall order. But on this day, I believe it is the only answer, full stop. And I've been talking a lot about all the things I'm reflecting on, but on this day, I want to start a conversation about tribalism and nationalism and racial supremacy, and not just how we see it in somebody else, but what it means for us to stand against those ways of being, not just in our country, but in our families, in our communities, and in our world. It is only when we end supremacy and end nationalism and end tribalism that things like what happened to George Floyd can stop happening in our country and beyond. Rest in power, George.